Hey boys, welcome back to some more Nrl Supercoach pre-season discussions, and we're going to be going through to a pretty important position. Obviously, you only get the two spots. It's going to be halfbacks in this one. I might do 5/8 as well. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, I could just have a shorter video and split them up, but I mean, for one, I do like to yap, so I'll probably take longer than I expect anyway. But I think the halfback spot is pretty. I mean, there's definitely some options, and we'll talk about it. There's one big decision to make, in my opinion. But it should be pretty swift. The 5/8 though, I do think there is. It's pretty open, so it could be a pretty open and different sort of start for a lot of people, depending how you go with your halves to start the year. So we'll start out with the top dog here, Nathan Cleary, coming in at a tick over 800k. I'm not gonna lie, he's been locked into my team since I made my first iteration, and I don't think he's going to leave it. Obviously, the one caveat, the one little thing is, obviously he did have some off-season surgery. I think, what was it, on his shoulder? I think it wasn't anything like major, but again, he did have that done. I think from what I've heard, from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure he's pretty much locked in for round one. Obviously, if there's any doubt, if he does somehow miss round one, then sure, I won't. If he misses round one, basically, I'm not going to start Nathan Cleary. I think I would fade him at that point. But if he's locked in for round one, I'm going to lock him into the side. I mean, he is the most expensive, but it's nothing crazy. It's definitely value for Cleary if he has a good run this year. If he's not injured, like any other player, obviously. But I like Cleary a lot. It will be interesting to see how Penrith attack. See if they are as potent as they were without a couple more key men at the club. Obviously, Jahrome Hughes being the main one there. But I think I like it for Cleary's output. Not so much, like, Luai didn't necessarily command too much footy. He wasn't like taking over from Cleary pretty much any game, but he did own that left hand side, and there were definitely moments where Cleary would dish it off to Luai, and then Luai would get the attacking points, obviously, and it's still going to happen. But the bigger takeaway, I think, is, I mean, for one, they're still undecided, I think, who's going to play 5. I mean, I'm sure the club knows, but we're not certain. There's quite a few options. Obviously, Talangi, they could stick with Laurie. Jack Cole, is Schneider still there? They got options. I'm not entirely sure. They might rotate depending how they go. Regardless, it's going to be a much less experienced partner outside of Cleary. So if it's possible, he could get his hands on the football even more than he has in previous years. He's really going to be the one steering the ship. I can see him sweeping right to left, left to right, and I think he is a lock in my side if he is, if he's firing, if he's fit, if he's good to go, if they say he's fit, I'm going to pick him, no doubt. Next up, Jahrome Hughes. I mean, as good as Jahrome Hughes was last year, I still just don't like it. I don't know. There's just something about picking a halfback that doesn't goal kick. Obviously, Hughes makes up for a bit of goal kicking or lack of goal kicking with just extra runs. He does love running the footy, which is obviously very good for Supercoach, but I just can't see Hughes. I mean, he's coming off his best. Potentially his best year in NRL as well. I mean, top years for sure. He was sensational, and also Supercoach wise, I think that's probably his best Supercoach year. So it's hard to imagine he's going to keep that up. He played a big chunk of it without Cameron Munster there. I think it showed when Munster was back. His output definitely dropped. He still had some good scores with Munster in the side, but Munster should be good to go. And I think that it just splits the points. Unless they put on a big score, it does just split the points even more. So I don't love Hughes. Nico Hynes is the next guy that's going to be very decisive on which way you roll. I've seen like a lot of people, they're of the mindset now of having to run, well, not having to, but they're very keen on running 3-gun fullbacks. They're keen on spending a bit more in their centre wing to get a couple of guns potentially. But I've seen less people talk about going with the 2-gun halfbacks, which has been a bread and butter for Supercoach, barring last year, which was just all over the shop. Like, I mean, Cleary missed a bunch, Hynes missed a bunch, he was out of form. There was a lot going on. And I think people have sort of, I don't know, like he's not in my team at the moment, Hynes, but I've got to be honest, I'm warming to the idea of going Cleary and Hynes. Just go with the old firm, because for a couple of years they were far and away the best players to sort of have there. Like, they were getting the biggest scores. The fullbacks as well, obviously, were critical, but I think the halfbacks were scoring considerably like higher ceiling points a bit more consistently. Now, it could be a drop-off. It could be a drop-off for the halfbacks. We can see that with the prices across the board, I would say. But the fact that he's only 15%, obviously this will increase. Although it might not increase that much, because they are taking on Penrith, so it's as tough as you're going to get to start the year. And I think it's just the thing you've got to live with if you're going to start Hynes. And I mean, honestly, Cleary as well, because I think the Sharks coming into the season are going to be fairly heavily tipped as premiership contenders. So I think picking either Cleary or Hynes, or if you're going both, I think you just got to ride that this first game could be a little bit of a bludger scoring wise. It might not. Maybe both teams put on some good points, or at least both these guys score well. But I think you've just got to be open to the fact that your round one, they could sort of cannibalize each other just with their performances against each other, and it might not be a high-scoring game for either of them or one of them. So you've got to keep that in mind. But 15%, I'm warming to the idea of going Hynes, because I don't know, the rhetoric of him with Trindle that he's no good anymore, I don't really buy. Trindle was getting his hands on the footy more since being in the team, other than Moylan of years gone by. But Hynes was just scoring good points. It was sort of around, he was in pretty good form. I mean, I think generally, like, his year as an NRL player was a bit of a fucking disaster. Like, he had a shocker. Like, I think generally he just had a bit of a shocker of a year. He started well, picked for Origin, lost all confidence once again coming out of Origin, hit a terrible form slump, and then had a couple of injuries, primarily that nasty ankle injury he suffered in training where he missed a bunch of footy. So I'm warming to the Hynes. He's 700k, for goodness sakes, because if we look at his stats, I feel like he started well. The round one was not good. Round one was definitely not good. 26 points in 80 minutes. It'd be panic stations. I mean, the first month, up and down. He's 75 points against the Doggies, 53 against the Tigers. I mean, that's an odd one. That's an odd one, only getting 53 against the Tigers. And then 94 against Canberra. And then he had the bye. And then, I mean, I don't know for certain. Maybe I'll quickly look, because obviously here, obviously Trindle missed footy as well over this time, but around 6, 7, and 8 and 9, 82, 142, 160, 97. He missed round 10, and then 114. Then injury here. Then he missed a bunch of footy over Origin, blah, blah, blah. Missed a bunch more footy here. He came back with a 47 and a 50. He finished the season poorly as well, but he showed over this period. I got to look. So round 6 to 9 was Trindle missing from those games? Because I cannot remember. I don't know if Trindle's a halfback as well. We'll just... Trindle. Okay, here we go. What games did Trindle miss? So, okay. They had a real shocker against the Warriors. So he played 6 and 7. He did miss 8 and 9. Yeah, he missed from round 8 to 12. Like, it was just sort of... It was so all over the shop. It was so all over this. So, he missed round 8 to round 12. I think Hynes' big scores were when Trindle was missing. So... Well, one of them. So, Trindle was there for round 6 and 7. He still scored 82, 142. So he still had the ceiling. Trindle missed 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Where he did score 160, 97, 114. And obviously the 3 is a bit of a wash. But I don't know. I don't know. I still think there were more factors at play than just Trindle outside of him. I still believe that. And I just think if he's going to be a pretty decent pod, I just like the idea of going with it for a bit of a pinch. It is obviously... Do they have the fixtures up yet? No, unfortunately not. But yeah, if they won't take on Penrith, it's a bit of a fucking pain in the ass. But yeah, that's I'm 50-50 at the moment on if I want to start Hynes or not. It's just a matter of like who your second halfback's going to be at the end of the day. And I think you're probably going to go cheap. That's where... Okay, so I think what could happen... Right, so obviously Sandon Smith, we'll see him in a second when we go to cheapies, but if a couple of good dummy halves pop up, like a couple of the cheap to mid-range guys pop up and look like they got good roles, like Brendan Hands, Blake Moser, a couple other guys looking like they could get good minutes and be pretty solid, then I like the idea of having Sandon Smith as your second halfback and having a cheapie. But if they're not panning out, I think Sandon Smith, obviously dummy half, is a great play. And then the idea of having Hynes as your second halfback is good. It is very good, unless there is another. I know there's a couple of other cheaper options potentially we'll have a look at. But yeah, it's a tricky one. Tamari Martin, obviously, you can't really look at him yet. We just don't know if he's going to get the spot. It could be 14. Tanner Boyd there. We don't know yet. Dylan Brown. I'll talk more about Dylan Brown at 5'8" when we talk about the 5'8". I am somewhat tempted, but yeah, we'll touch on him at 5'8". Cherry Evans, no. Walker obviously out. Mitchell Moses is... I mean, he's fairly well owned. Half of Hynes. You are saving quite a bit of money, but, I mean, this... It depends on goal kicking. If he's goal kicking, then I think you can definitely have a look at him. He could be that second halfback if you didn't want to go with Hynes and you were a bit worried. And I think taking a punt on Moses as your second halfback, I don't dislike at all. If he's not goal kicking, then obviously I don't think there's any point in looking at him. He could still have some good games with the attack, but he's going to have too many low scores without the goal kicking. And I mean, before even before like preseason, I would have thought Moses would be the goal kicker 100%. I know Lomax turned a bit of a corner last year. He was a bit of a dud of a goal kicker. Like, no, he wasn't terrible, but he did miss quite a few. But last year he turned it around. He kicked very well. But I still think Moses, in general, is a far better goal kicker than Lomax. So I would have predicted Moses would have kept goal kicking, but from all reports and the talk, it seems like Lomax is going to take the goal kicking, which I'm surprised. It does. I mean, we'll talk about centre wingers in another video, obviously, but if Lomax is goal kicking, I still don't mind the idea of Lomax. But yeah, Moses depends. Jahrome Hughes, a very popular option. 27% of people. I guess he's the guy that people are going as that second halfback. Actually, no, I think most people are picking him at 5'8". So we'll talk more about Luai at 5'8", because I think that's where you'd play him. Cody Walker as well. Actually, I've been a little tempted as well by Cody Walker, I've got to be honest, as a 5'8" option. There's a lot of duels. I feel like there's way more duels than there ever have been. I don't know if it's like front row, second row forward, and now halfback 5'8". Like, they're all dual halfback 5'8". So, I mean, it's good. It allows for a bit more, just I think a bit more variety potentially. Going down the list, any other halfbacks in the mid range? So yeah, Brad Schneider is still at Penrith. Obviously not an option. Going down, so if you're going to partner Cleary, your gun halfback with a cheaper option, we're just looking for that. I mean, Isaiah Katoa, he definitely improved as a footy player, but yeah, I just don't think he's going to be a super coach. He's just going to be one of these very solid to very good players, but I don't know if he's ever going to be super coach relevant. I mean, Lockie Elias has gone to the Dragons. Lewis Dodd, so I've got him in my team at the moment, actually, as the second halfback, the cheaper option. I don't mind him. I mean, I think he's a pretty decent player. I'll be interested to see how they attack. I mean, I think the Rabbitohs, they're going to be an attacking threat. I mean, having Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell at the back, their outside backs are looking pretty strong with Campbell Graham back in. I think Lewis Dodd, I mean, potentially could rack up some points. So I'm very curious to see how their attacking structure is with Dodd. So yeah, he could be a guy to look at. Tanner Boyd is interesting. He'll be a watch. I don't particularly rate Tanner Boyd, but obviously the Warriors have signed him. They did need some halfback depth. He could get the spot. Like, if he gets the spot, I'd be a little surprised if he did, but he could. They did sign him, and if he did, he would have the goal kicking duties over Luke Metcalf, who I know is very popular at 5'8". So Tanner Boyd, I mean, yeah, one to watch, like, as that cheaper option at 5'8" or halfback if he does get the spot. I mean, 8.5% of people have him at the moment, so they're a little what's it called? Tempted or interested. Going down, obviously, Jamie Humphries. He'd come. I'm expecting to come off the bench, so not really an option. So Sandon Smith there, like I said, if there's plenty of dummy half options that look good value, then yeah, you could easily have Sandon Smith as your backup halfback and make good cash and be able to swing him around if needed. And then the real cheapy options, I don't think there's really. I mean, Tom Duffy. Could get the spot. I don't know. Obviously, Clifford. I think Clifford is the front runner, but he has had some injury issues over the preseason. So Duffy, he could get a spot early on, but I don't know if he's going to keep it. So that's the issue with going someone like a Duffy early on, and then I don't think there's any real other options. So again, the big decision for me is, like, I am locked in for Cleary. It's just if I go Hynes as my second halfback, which again, he's tick over 700k. I mean, I know people are going to be like, with Trindle, he's no good, and maybe that is the case. But as a pod goes, it's just going to be tricky. Like I said, you just got to ride that first game against Penrith. It's going to be tough. And I think with Vanor, I know he's just one prop, but man, for Noah Blake fucking going to the Sharkies, for one, I've said it before, but Hynes loves one off the ruck and getting his big prop, in the past has been Hemla Nuele. He's scored a lot of tries. Royce Hunter scored a few. Big Thomas Hazelton scored a bunch last year. Just one off Hynes out wide. Just a simple pass. He gets an easy try assist. I mean, for Noah Blake on that line is going to score a bunch of tries. And not even that. Maybe it doesn't happen. He doesn't score that many tries off Hynes. But just a quick play the ball. He has one of the quick play that, he just beats that first tackler, gets to his front, just playing some up-tempo footy. I can just see the Sharkies, not necessarily against the Panthers, but against a lot of other teams, just getting an absolute roll on, and Hynes playing off the back of it. So I really like the idea of it. But let's go on to 5'8". Because I think there's quite a bit to talk about with 5'8". So let's go down. So Dylan Brown, like I said, Dylan Brown, I am tempted by Dylan Brown. I just think he's 650k. I think, I picked him up. If we look, I picked him up last year, and people were heaps of people were keen on him last year at fucking 800,000, 780k, and I had him in my team. A lot of other people were pretty keen on him, and he banged out 50s and 60s, which is it's not bad. It's not bad considering how sort of rubbish the 5'8" spot was for most of the year. It's not bad, but it's not obviously 800,000. It's pretty shocking. He did. I mean, after the half a year, he definitely came into it. He was getting, 50s, low 50s or 40. And then, after that bye, 96, 70, 66, 76, 50, 82, 60, a couple of 50s. And then 69, 90, 54, 36, 40. So a couple of low ones. 160 against the Dragons, and then 57 against the Tigers. But I don't know. He's playing for a contract. His manager's come out and said he's open to offers. And we know for a fact that players who are on the market or are about to be on the market, they put their best foot forward. Let's be honest. And Moses, hopefully, he's not going to get a couple of long-term injuries again. Dylan Brown 100% plays better when they are clicking. There were definitely games where he scored well without Moses and took a bit more of the responsibility. But I think playing off the back of Moses just works better for Brown as a whole. They should be an attacking team. At 650k, it is tempting. It is tempting, I gotta be honest. I think he's just, he's not gonna let you down. That's the thing with Brown. Even his, bad games, he's getting, 50 points, which is, it can be frustrating if you pay a premium, but yeah, I don't know. Matty Burton, I don't particularly like. He was great last year. He does have the goal kicking. I think the Doggies have a pretty good start to the draw. So, I don't know, maybe I've never really wanted to own Burton. Maybe it's just I've just got that in my head, so I'm not looking at it. But maybe here's a guy to look at. I don't know. They do have a good start to the season. Goal kicking is great. It's just the base with him. He can have some really, really low scores, even with some attack in him. So I don't know. Lockie Galvin, I gotta be honest, I'm somewhat tempted by Galvin. Am I crazy for thinking this? It's just the fact that he was so good for us last year. I know now you're paying what he scored last year, but everything about him is it just rings as a Supercoach weapon, right? He's got that Dylan Brown about him with great base. He loves a run, an offload here and there. Good in defense, makes a bunch of tackles, but I think what he has over Brown is that he gets his hands on the football way more often. Like, and I know now Luai going to the club, it might... I'm a little torn on what will happen, but I don't know. I've never seen Luai as a halfback that's just going to get his hands on the footy every set and just control every sort of play, right? Like, I just don't see that for Luai. I can still see the Tigers use... I think that'd be crazy to not let Galvin do what he did last year and just roam. Just go... Like, the fitness on this kid. Fucking watching him last year, I mean, they've talked about, like, in the preseason, he's been smashing the fitness tests and stuff. And, I mean, it showed last year, just every game, he'd just right to left, left to right. He'd be getting involved so often, and it's great for Supercoach. I like the idea of starting him. I know there's always that second year syndrome type thing, but I don't know. I think this kid's an absolute freak, and I do think he can go to the next level. I really do. And I think playing off the back of a Luai, it just adds a little bit more spark. It adds a little bit more attack to their game, because a lot of times, like, yeah, there would be no go forward, Galvin to get the ball, get something going, but I think with Luai now there's just that added attacking flair, and I think they could work well together. I'm considering Galvin, but it is expensive. Again, the money is tight. So as much as I like some of these players, if there's better value elsewhere, it's hard to pass up. Cameron Munster coming in at very cheap. He doesn't. I mean, it seems crazy. I haven't even really thought about starting Munster, but maybe you fucking do. Like, he missed, obviously, so much footy. He was playing injured throughout the whole season. Like, that groin was just never right. He showed he still had the ceiling. He obviously had the base. Like, he didn't have too many low scores. He had a 37. That was in 70 minutes. 17 when he got injured. He had a 32, and that's in 49 minutes. Then he had 59 in 68 minutes, 47 in... Fuck, you know what? The more I look at Munster, I'm like, shit, maybe you just go Munster. Like, the games he played 80, 58, 103, 49, low, 63, 66, 58, 148, 92, 42, and that's it. Like, I haven't even thought about Munster at all. I was keen on like a Galvin as like a pod, but I mean, Munster will be pretty poddish as well. I mean, 11.5. I mean, people are definitely looking at him. That's hard to pass up, honestly. That is hard to pass up. Like, if he's looking fit, don't mind it. And they take on Para in the first game. It's not a bad little matchup to start. And Benny Hunt, obviously not very keen. I mean, I don't know. Maybe at the Bronx. I mean, he has been an option. And I guess now he's okay. So now it's funny because he's now just 5'8". In the past, he's just been a halfback, and you'd never pick Ben Hunt as a halfback in previous years, but he's always been like thereabouts. Now he doesn't have the dual. He doesn't have halfback. He's just 5'8", but I'm like, I don't know. You probably, I don't think you'd go in, but I mean, the Broncos should be a better attacking team than the Dragons. He's playing off the back of Reynolds, and he's got Reece Walsh outside of him. Fuck, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go Ben Hunt. Like, I'd rather go Munster or Galvin, but I don't actually hate the idea of a pod of Hunt. Yeah, I don't know. That's actually interesting. Dearden, not interested, really. Jahrome Luai is the one that a lot of people are keen on, like I said. I am not. I know people are bringing up the stats that he played halfback for Penrith. And he has looked great at halfback whenever he's played it. International for Penrith, whatever. He's looked good. He scored great. But, I mean, he's going to the Tigers. He does have that familiarity with Api Coruscant. I don't know. I think Luai's going to be a good one to antipod, in my opinion. Like, I think, 27% isn't crazy numbers. But I think that probably will increase as we get closer to round one. Potentially, maybe not. But I think if he's going to be really high ownership, I think he's a really good antipod to start the year. Like, I think he's a classic one. If he comes out and absolutely kills it, then sure, you can jump on. Like, you might miss a couple of good scores, but for one, you're not going to captain fucking Luai. If you do, you're an absolute insane person. So any advantage you're going to get is not going to be that high. Obviously, if he kills it, yeah, you don't waste a trade getting him in. But I think the potential of him averaging about 50 to 60, I think is really, really high. He's not going to have the goal kicking. I'm just not keen on it. I really am not keen on it. I could eat my words 100%. If he comes out and brains it in the first couple of games, I'll be the first to admit it. I'll potentially jump on him. But I don't know. I think for how highly owned he is, like, he's 600k. Like, you'd really rather Luai than fucking Cameron Munster? Really? I'm like, why? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they go. We will see. But I personally am not that keen. Blaze to Lungy. There's just so much up in the air with Talangi. I personally think he's probably the leader to take that 5'8" spot, but he'll definitely have needed to shown a lot over preseason, I would say, for him to win the spot. Because, I mean, Penrith, they built their domination on defence. Talangi, a bit weak defensively, I would say. So I think if he's shown the ability, if he's bulked up a bit, if he's put the hard yards in, I think he will get the spot. I don't know. I obviously have not seen Penrith training. So I think it could be his spot, but there's still that uncertainty. If he has a couple of bad games, there's every chance they could rotate a bit. They've got plenty of options who could cover that 5'8" spot with Cleary. So I don't mind him for the price because he's got that upside. He's got that X factor about him, which is, I mean, it's great for Supercoach. NRL wise, you know, he could have a couple of shockers and be out of the side. But Supercoach wise, I think he'll be great. I don't know. It's a risk to start him. Also, I did forget. I didn't even realize he is centre wing and dual. So you know what? You'd probably, I don't know. Would you rather him 5'8" or centre wing? Probably centre wing. I don't know. That's an interesting question as well. But don't hate it, but a little bit uncertain. Cody Walker coming in at 560. I was keen on, but honestly, the fact he's 560, I mean, it comes down to Latrell. I mean, if Latrell is firing, and it looks like he will be, but if he is, Cody Walker is going to score well off the back of it. I mean, it's just that simple. He just will. If Latrell gets injured or suspended or whatever, then Cody Walker will suffer greatly. So they really do go hand in hand. So, I mean, if you are expecting Latrell to have a big season, then Cody Walker probably will as well. I mean, he started 700k last year. It's good value. He started like an absolute buster. He came good middle of the year. He had a couple of good scores. I mean, he honestly, middle of the year to the back third, he put some pretty good scores together. He finished terribly. 37, 32, bye, 32, 62. I mean, the 30s against Penrith, Melbourne, tough, but Tigers 32, not great. Yeah, I don't know. I just think some of the, I mean, like again, like the fact that Munster is 610. I think I'd rather pay the extra and get Munster over Cody Walker, but I could see a bounce back for him. Going down the list, anyone else stand out? I mean, Tyron Wishart, obviously not an option this year, but fuck, he was great for me last year. Big props to my boy Wishart. I mean, KO Weeks still will have the fullback spot. He probably isn't quite at that level that you would pick him, but I mean, like any other time, like if you pick a starting fullback as your 5'8", like you're loving it, but probably just doesn't quite have the base. Like he has the attacking upside, but doesn't have the base of other fullbacks to really be that absolute gun. Going down the list, anyone else stand out? So Luke Metcalf is obviously very tempting. I mean, if he is, I mean, if Tanner Boyd isn't picked and Luke Metcalf is going to be goal kicking, then yeah, you're probably going to go Luke Metcalf. I mean, as you can see, he's in my team at the moment. 440k for an attacking upside half who goal kicks. It's a pretty good deal. A lot of people are jumping on. If he's not goal kicking, I don't think I'd pick him. He's still pretty good. I wouldn't turn up my nose at people that still picked him, even without the goal kicking. I think he can still be a pretty good value pickup, but it just takes it away. And I gotta be honest, I'm worried about the Warriors this year. I think they're gonna have a bit of a tough season. If I'm being frank, I don't love their chances. I could be off the mark, but out of a lot of the worst teams in the comp, I think have recruited pretty well. I think they could be on the up and up. But there has to be teams that like go worse and lose more games, right? It's just the way fucking football works. So it's gonna happen. And I think the Warriors are one of those teams that they've lost some key members. I mean, they picked up Fisher Harris, but I don't know. Is that really a fucking improvement on a Fanil Blake? I don't actually think so. Maybe for the culture, sure. But Tohu Harris leaving. I mean, Sean Johnson leaving. Yes, I know he missed a bunch of footy regardless, but it's still big losses. So I don't know. That's the only reason why I'm half scared away from Metcalf, just how the Warriors going to perform this year. But yeah, if he's goal kicking, it's hard to rule him out. Adam Dewey. As you can see, I've got him in my team at the moment. I think he's my second 5'8". I don't know. I was playing around with a weird team. It's definitely not my final team by any means. I was just trying a few things. But I gotta be honest, Adam Dewey at 430k, he's got me a little tempted. It does come down to the goal kicking, because Api Coruscant probably just keeps the goal kicking. I would assume he kicked pretty well last year. I don't think he's a very good goal kicker, but he did kick pretty well last year. Adam Dewey coming off a couple of serious injuries, probably doesn't need the goal kicking. He's probably, I think generally he's probably a better goal kicker overall, but yeah, everything that's going on, Appy probably gets it. But I mean, if Adam Dewey was goal kicking, he's a big body centre. He's always going to have decent base. He's got some attack in him. I don't hate the idea of going Dewey. I don't know. It could be madness. I mean, honestly, I'm sort of hoping he doesn't even... It's just confirmed that Appy's goal kicking, so then I don't even have to think about Adam Dewey, because I don't know, just there was something about him. I mean, I guess he only started at 500k even last year. He played a few games. I mean, he looked pretty good when he came back. He looked a little underdone, but there was some points in him. And this was without goal kicking. This was without goal kicking after a serious injury. He played 75 minutes, 64, 70 minutes, 39. I don't know, did he get a sin bin? Probably. The Tigers fucking love a sin bin. 57, 39, 42. He had a pretty fucking tough introduction as well. I mean, Canberra, Roosters, Melbourne, Sharks, Souths weren't great, but that's a pretty tough time to come back in. Missed a couple of games, and then 46 and 56, and then missed the rest of the season. So the scoring is actually pretty good, like considering coming back from that. So I don't know. I've got a little watchful eye on Adam Doueihi, and it might not be a 5'8". Maybe it will be like a centre wing, little pod play. He is 7% owned, which is a little fucking shocking. I don't know why he's 7%. I thought he'd be like an absolute super pod, but I don't know. I don't hate it potentially. Going down the list, we're getting to like the low mid-range to cheapy options. I mean, Tanner Boyd, like I said, in the halfback, if he gets the goal kicking, I don't hate it. I mean, you got Cogger, you got Will Price. I mean, if Will Price got the 5'8" spot and there was some confidence that he would keep it, 300k for Will Price, I would snatch that up in a heartbeat, because he is a Supercoach player, but we just have no fucking confidence on what O'Brien will do with the halves in general. We'll see. Going down the list. Anyone else? Any cheapy options? I don't think there will be. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's gonna be a tricky little, like, I mean, maybe one of these guys will pop out of nowhere, a cheapie, but like, if Will Price doesn't get a spot, then you're spending upwards of like 400k on like a second. So yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I've seen a lot of people, like, they'll run like Luke Metcalf. He'd be like their first choice 5'8", but then you're like, fuck, you got to spend like. You're spending like 400k on another guy anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. It's honestly a very tricky position this year, because you don't generally want to spend that much on your 5'8s, because they just haven't had the ceiling of the halfback. So you don't want like two guns in the halfbacks and 5'8. That's why I don't know. Like, that's the thing. If I go like Cameron Munster is my starter, I'm going to have to spend another, 300 plus 400k on my second half. Unless I do, you could, yeah, that's the annoying thing. It'd be so, oh man, how good would it have been if Nico Hynes or fucking Cleary would dual halfback 5'8", because then you could go the two guns, and then you could go, let's say, Munster, and then you could just go a cheapy dual. Jake Elliott, you could just go a cheapy dual, and then if anything happened, you could swing him around, but obviously not to be. That is not to be, unfortunately, so don't even think about it. But that's pretty much the halves wrapped up. I'm keen on Cleary. I am pretty keen on Hynes. I got to be honest. The more I think about it, I do like the Hynes play. What's his face? Cameron Munster. I wasn't even thinking about him, but the fact I saw him here for 600k, it's got me a little juiced up for him. Lockie Galvin, I like the idea just because, I mean, no one's going to go him. Like, no one's talking about him. No one's going him. He's just an absolute freak. I just love the idea of going him. And then obviously, yeah, Luke Metcalf, if he's goal king at 400k, is very juicy. But then there's not much else. There's not much else but cheaper. If we get a Will Price starting, that would be nice, because then you could go someone cheaper as your second guy. I'm just thinking, could you? It seems insane, but could you potentially do like enough? Are there any halfback duels that you could do that to work? So Cleary is locked in, but who else could I go as my halfback / 5'8" that I could do that little ploy with a cheapie if things sort of turn out badly? I guess you could go Dylan Brown. He's the only top line guy. Yeah, Matty Burns just 5'8". Moses just half. Galvin 5. I guess that's where Luai comes in. You could have him at halfback. Cody Walker. I mean, there are options. It's just the fact I do like the idea of starting Hynes. So yeah, I'm torn. But I am leaning towards the Cleary Hynes combo, and then the 5'8s. Fuck, I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's a couple of guys that I'm keen on. Wouldn't mind taking the punt, but it is expensive, and there's also just no. It's the biggest thing, because yeah, you spend 600k on your starter, but then you also have to spend a good amount of money on your second guy, unless you want to just go for enough, which it just seems a bit crazy with only one. You have one position as your 5'8", but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully, guys enjoyed the half and 5'8" discussion. Let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are going to fade Hynes. I know a lot of people are keen on Jahrome Luai. A few other pods potentially people are looking at. I mean, even Bet Hunt. Fucking the Bet Hunt. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Fucking, it's got me a little jazzed up. I think there's some pretty good value. I don't know. The 5'8s could be another dead position though. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the content. Make sure to like and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.